At 11:47 hours, the regional command network operates at peak efficiency. 8 integrated systems. Satellite communications link 17 forward bases. UAV reconnaissance feeds real-time imagery to artillery batteries. Digital tactical networks connect every infantry squad. GPS-guided munitions await coordinates. Air defense radar tracks 200 miles out. Kamikaze drones orbit assigned sectors. Ground sensors monitor approach routes. Logistics software manages supply chains. Everything is connected. Everything is digital. This is combat power. At 11:47:23, a missile launches from 400 miles away. Trajectory: vertical. Altitude: 25 miles and climbing. The air defense network detects it immediately. Classification: ballistic missile. Projected impact: 380 miles downrange. Not a threat to this sector. The system logs it and continues monitoring. At 11:48:15, the missile reaches 40 kilometers altitude. It detonates. The warhead is not conventional, not nuclear fission. It's a specialized EMP device, electromagnetic pulse. The detonation creates a massive gamma-ray burst. The gamma rays interact with air molecules. Free electrons cascade. The electromagnetic pulse radiates outward at the speed of light. Radius: 600 kilometers. At 11:48:16, the pulse hits. Every unshielded electronic system within 600 kilometers experiences instantaneous voltage surge. Circuits overload. Processors burn. Solid-state components fuse. The satellite uplink goes dead. The UAV feeds cut to black. The digital tactical network flatlines. GPS receivers show error. Air defense radar screens go dark. The kamikaze drones lose command link. They execute failsafe, return to base. But their navigation is GPS dependent. GPS is gone. The drones circle in confusion. The ground sensors stop transmitting. The logistics network crashes. At 11:48:30, the command center realizes what happened. 70% of all electronic systems are non-functional. The regional commander stares at dead screens. No satellite communications, no UAV reconnaissance, no digital coordination, no GPS, no networked fires, no real-time intelligence. The military has been transported to 1945, except the enemy still has functioning electronics. Their equipment was hardened against EMP. Military-grade Faraday shielding, redundant systems in protected bunkers. They planned for this. At 11:49, reports arrive by backup radio, analog systems, tube-based technology from the 1960s. Only 20% of units have them. The reports are fragmented. Some bases are completely silent. No way to contact them. The enemy is advancing. Ground forces. Estimated strength, brigade level. 3,000 troops. 200 armored vehicles. Direction: southeast. Speed: 30 miles per hour. Distance: 40 miles. Arrival time: 80 minutes. Which force breaks first? A. Air Defense. B. Naval Group C. Command Network. The regional commander has defending forces. 2 battalions, 1,600 troops, 40 tanks, 60 infantry fighting vehicles. Artillery: 18 105 mm howitzers. In theory, adequate to stop a brigade. But his forces are scattered across 200 square miles. Without digital communications, he cannot coordinate them. At 11:52, he attempts to issue orders. The analog radios have limited range, 5 miles maximum. His headquarters can reach 3 battalion commanders. The rest are beyond range. He orders messengers, vehicles driving to each unit. Average distance: 15 miles. Average speed on rough terrain: 25 miles per hour. Delivery time: 35 minutes. The enemy arrives in 75 minutes. That gives 40 minutes to execute orders after units receive them. At 12:05, the first messengers depart. 12 vehicles to 12 different units. The orders are simple: converge on grid coordinates, establish defensive line, engage enemy on approach. But the coordinates are GPS-based. The units don't have GPS. They have paper maps. At 12:15, the first messenger arrives at Alpha Company. The company commander receives the orders. He pulls out a paper map. Most of his soldiers have never used paper maps. Their training was entirely digital. The commander finds the grid coordinates. He plots the defensive position. Distance from current location, 8 miles. Bearing, unknown, without GPS. He uses a compass. Magnetic bearing, 135 degrees. He orders movement. The company has 12 vehicles. They begin moving. No digital spacing. No automated collision avoidance. Manual driving only. At 12:25, Alpha Company is lost. The terrain doesn't match the map. The map is from 1998. The landscape has changed. New roads, new buildings. The commander stops, tries to reorient. He identifies landmarks, a distinctive hill, a river bend. He triangulates position. Current location, 2 miles off course. What happens next changes everything. At 12:30, enemy artillery begins firing. They have GPS. They have digital fire control. They have real-time targeting data. The first barrage lands on Bravo Company headquarters. Direct hit. Company commander killed. Chain of command disrupted. At 12:35, the enemy advance reaches the first defensive positions, Delta Company. They're in position but isolated. No communication with other units. No artillery support. The digital fire request system is dead. Delta Company has analog radios, but they don't know the frequencies other units are using. The frequency list was stored digitally. At 12:40, Delta Company engages. 40 enemy vehicles at 2,000 meters. The tanks fire. No laser rangefinders. Those are electronic. Manual ranging only. Estimate distance by eye. Adjust fire by observation. First salvo. 3 hits out of 8 shots. The enemy returns fire. Their systems work perfectly. Laser ranging, digital ballistics. First round hit probability, 80%. Delta Company loses 2 tanks in the first exchange. At 12:45, the artillery commander tries to support Delta Company. He has 18 howitzers, but he has no forward observers with working radios. He cannot see the target. He cannot adjust fire. He has paper maps. He has analog phones with landlines. The landlines were cut by the EMP surge in telecom infrastructure. He's firing blind or not firing at all. At 12:50, Charlie Company arrives at the defensive line. They're the second unit to reach the position. 2 companies out of 12. The rest are scattered. Some are still trying to navigate. Some never received orders. Some are engaged independently. There's no coordination. At 12:55, the enemy breaks through Delta Company's position. Delta Company is destroyed. 15 tanks lost. 180 casualties. The enemy loses 8 vehicles. The exchange rate favors the side with working electronics. At 13 now, the regional commander has partial picture. Analog radio reports from 4 units. Rest, unknown status. Enemy is penetrating the defensive line. Friendly forces cannot coordinate counterattack. Artillery cannot provide support. Air support is unavailable. The fighter jets need GPS for navigation. The targeting pods need digital data links. The entire air power of the region is grounded. At 13:05, the commander makes a desperate decision. Physical coordination. He orders all units to withdraw to a single rally point, a major intersection 20 miles behind current lines. Distinctive landmark. Impossible to miss even without GPS. Every unit that receives the order begins moving. At 13:15, the withdrawal begins. But it's chaotic. Units don't know where other units are. No digital Blue Force tracking. Friendly vehicles nearly engage each other twice. Recognition is visual only. At 13:25, the artillery begins displacement. They cannot fire effectively anyway. Better to preserve the guns. Each howitzer is towed by a truck. The convoy forms. 18 guns, 18 trucks, support vehicles. Total, 50 vehicles. At 13:30, enemy reconnaissance drones spot the artillery convoy. The drones have optical cameras. No data link needed. They report back by radio. Enemy command orders strike. At 13:35, enemy attack helicopters engage the artillery convoy. The convoy has no air defense. The mobile SAM systems are electronic. Dead after the EMP. The helicopters fire anti-tank missiles from 3 miles out. The artillery convoy is defenseless. At 13:40, 16 howitzers are destroyed. 2 survive. The regional commander has lost 90% of his artillery. At 13:45, units begin arriving at the rally point. Alpha Company, Charlie Company, Echo Company, parts of several other companies. Total strength, 800 troops, 22 tanks, 30 infantry vehicles, 50% of the original force. At 13:50, the commander organizes the survivors. He has one advantage. Everyone is in visual range. He can coordinate by voice, by runner, by direct observation. He establishes a defensive perimeter around the intersection. At 14 UAU, the enemy arrives. They've been tracking the withdrawal. 3,000 troops. 150 vehicles remaining after earlier fighting. They surround the intersection. At 14:10, the battle becomes primitive. No precision strikes, no coordinated fires, just direct fire combat. Tank versus tank at visible range. Infantry fighting from buildings and rubble. The enemy still has electronic fire control, but at close range, the advantage diminishes. At 14:25, the fighting is brutal. The defenders hold the intersection. Urban terrain favors defense. Buildings provide cover. Narrow streets channel attackers. At 14:40, the defenders run low on ammunition. Supply trucks never made it to the rally point. They're lost somewhere without GPS. How many interceptors can one destroyer launch simultaneously? A. 24B, 96C, over 200. At 14:50, a friendly armored battalion arrives. They're from another region. Outside the EMP radius. Full electronics, full coordination, full combat power. They hit the enemy from the flank. The enemy is caught between 2 forces. At 15 EO, the enemy withdraws. They've achieved their objective. Penetrated 30 miles into defended territory. Destroyed half the defending force. Demonstrated the vulnerability of network-dependent military. At 15:15, the regional commander assesses damage. Casualties, 800 killed or wounded. Equipment, 22 tanks destroyed. 40 infantry vehicles destroyed. 16 artillery pieces destroyed. Territory lost, 600 square miles. But the real loss is strategic. The military's dependence on electronics is now a critical vulnerability. Every adversary with EMP capability can replicate this attack. Necessary defense or catastrophic overreach. At 15:30, emergency restoration begins. Replacement electronics arrive from unaffected regions, but installation takes days. The systems are complex. Specialized technicians are needed. At 16 EU, partial satellite communications restore. The first clear picture emerges. 12 bases went completely dark. 7 have reported in. 5 remain silent. The scope of the disaster becomes clear. An entire regional command was paralyzed for 4 hours. In modern warfare, 4 hours is enough to lose a war. If combat power decides wars, type combat power. The tactical lessons are devastating. First, electronic warfare is existential. Militaries cannot function without digital networks. Second, EMP weapons are strategic game changers. One missile disabled an entire command structure. Third, backup systems are critical. The 20% of units with analog radios were the only ones that maintained any coordination. Fourth, training matters. Soldiers who never used paper maps couldn't navigate without GPS. Fifth, the enemy's plan was perfect. They struck the network first, then attacked while the defenders were blind. The integration of digital systems creates a single point of failure. The answer to the quiz: modern destroyers can launch over 200 missiles, but none of those missiles work if the ship's electronics are fried by EMP. which is why naval vessels have significant hardening and backup systems that ground forces often lack. What would you order next? The regional command must prepare for follow-up attacks. The enemy proved their capability. They'll exploit it. Options: harden all electronics against EMP, deploy more analog backup systems, change doctrine to reduce network dependence, launch counterattack to destroy enemy EMP capabilities. Each option requires months of implementation. The enemy can attack again in days. The strategic choice: accept vulnerability and hope EMP attacks remain rare, or fundamentally restructure the entire military away from digital dependence. Subscribe to Combat Power, where raw force decides survival. Can modern militaries fight without electronics? Should forces maintain analog capabilities as backup? Is network-centric warfare a fatal weakness? When does technological advantage become catastrophic vulnerability?